Hi, welcome to the TMC Newsroom. I'm Erik Linask. I'm here in Las Vegas at CTIA Wireless 2010, and I'm chatting with Alex Brisbourne, who's the president and COO, of Kore Telematics. Alex, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Erik. Appreciate the time.
So, I guess what we want to talk about here, and what a lot of people are talking about, is what's going on in the world of machine-to-machine communications. Obviously, a lot of talk about wireless,
Yep.
and so the next generation, and M2M really is a big part of that.
It really is. I mean, you've got this marketplace that has been traditionally M2M, oftentimes seen a bit blue collar, certainly business to business. Now we're bringing in new phrases, connected devices, embedded wireless, the sort of things that people are referring to as e-readers, Kindles, personal navigation devices, which is much more slanted towards the consumer, but there's a lot of common elements. And the elements essentially are, these are all about unattended data communications, machines talking to applications without people intervening with them. And the M2M marketplace is one that we at Kore Telematics are 100% focused on. It's our only business, has been for 6-7 years since we started the company, and now have become the largest provider in North America of specialized network services in that marketplace. And we power today about 650 or so application providers, from healthcare to utilities and many other segments. So it's been very interesting to see how those segments have been evolving over the past 12 to 18 months. Particularly, I think, topical this week because of what we saw last weekend, which kind of had us sort of glued to our screens in terms of what's happening in healthcare. What we're actually seeing are the implications of wellness management in healthcare being enabled by the wireless community. And it's certainly been an area of broad discussion here at this show, far beyond us, I think, into the main stage areas.
Well, there's no question. You mentioned the healthcare industry specifically. There's an awful lot of interest in the healthcare community and how wireless communications and M2M communications can help speed up that and enhance the efficiency of that patient life cycle. So who are you seeing interest from in these different verticals?
Well, we've probably got a dozen or so different applications running on our network today, with tens of thousands of devices already out there in what would be seen to be niche marketplaces. Sleep apnea monitoring, general health and wellness management, impact management for folks that wear, for example, helmets, devices that can detect if people have fallen in their home and so set information to primary caregivers, for example, as well as more, standardized applications, devices for tracking Alzheimer patients and being able to geofence them, bring them home. The key in all of these is you're really looking at utilizing the technology in these kind of applications in a forward preventative sense. You're looking at people's vital signs, monitoring them 24 hours a day. You're not sending information 24 hours a day. You're looking for exceptions. Blood pressures rise, glucose levels in their bloodstreams fall below a certain level. And these are all to do with broad-based wellness and preventative healthcare, which clearly is an important part of where we're trying to go in our industry. But you can look at others. For example, in prescription drug monitoring of usefulness is important. We have some applications that actually ensure that people complete their complete drug courses. You and I are both guilty, I'll guarantee, of having been given antibiotics at some point in our lives, and when we felt better, we stopped taking them.
Sure.
Sure?
Absolutely.
And that meant that you left 10 pills in the bottle. Okay? Well, arguably, that's overprescribing. Arguably, it's certainly overpaying. So 10 pills wasted is 10 pills wasted. Here's the bigger problem. 2 out of 500 people end up within 90 days back in a healthcare cycle because that course was not completed. If you have simple mechanisms of wirelessly based reminders, you can wirelessly remind people's cell phones or web services or others, just to ensure they take their courses at the right time, then you've got the likelihood that people will complete those courses and ensure that you don't come back. In Canada, they did a study on this, and the federal government, and I guess it's the advantage of a federal program there, believe that they waste between $6 and $8 billion a year on drug prescription management of the type we've talked about. Canada typically is 10% of the US market. So if it's $6 billion in Canada, it could be $60 billion in the US. By the way, we prescribe 2x the number of prescribed drugs in the US as they do in Canada. Could be $160 billion. Think if you could save half of that simply by putting in systems which ensure that they're managed effectively. You've gone a long way to starting to demonstrate that you can actually put steps in place to control healthcare costs.
And then I guess the other obviously really big area in terms of this is in the energy space.
Good example. We today power about 1 million plus homes, largest single commercial deployment here in North America, in New Mexico and Arizona, of smart metering infrastructure. The problem is that today it's still a technology discussion in and around the utilities marketplace, and there's some regulatory and other related matters. In fact, on this very subject, I was speaking with Anik Chopra only about 30 minutes ago, just before I came down here. And I believe that the problem that we're facing still in that particular space is knowledge of consumption getting back to the consumer. At the end of the day, we want to not have to build more power stations and not have to create more capability in our distribution infrastructure. To do that, we've got to reduce demand. We're only going to reduce demand by one of two ways: better information in your hands, or frankly, tough pricing regimens. Well, the ideal is to give you better information and then back it up with tough pricing, as opposed to use the crude hammer of just tough pricing. And that means closed loop information management outgrowth from the utilities of what your consumption is and how you can change behavior. That has to be enabled as part of this whole smart metering infrastructure program.
So basically what you're talking about is in order to make this successful, you've got to teach the consumer how to behave, change. You have to learn new behaviors.
You've got to give them knowledge. You've got to give them real-time knowledge of what running the dishwashing machine costs now compared to what it could cost 2 hours later. And you've got to give it to them in a form that's easily digestible, whether it's information which is given to you in an iPhone app, whether it's given to you on a web service, but it's got to be given to you in real time when you can still make a decision, not in a bill a month later.
Does the individual consumer, though, care about 50 cents here or 75 cents there, as opposed to the potential impact of an entire county, state, or country?
Answer is, some consumers are sensitive to that 50 cent, 75 cent impact. Lots of consumers are insensitive to it until it accumulates, and it means it's $30 in a month, that they could potentially change. Sure. And $30 in a month is half of their cable subscription, or it's a new set of shoes for the kids, and that becomes real at that point, because ultimately we're talking about being able to increment people's disposable income just by managing their decisions a little bit better, and that becomes important.
I wish I could get my cable service for only $60 a month. I've been talking here in Las Vegas at CTIA 2010 with Alex Brisbourne from Kore Telematics. Alex, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.